China's newest idea to take over the USA is next level. The US and China are getting closer to a trade agreement, but this will not be the end of the fight. The issues at the heart of the conflict will be extremely difficult to address. In today's video, we will be discussing a trade war that escalated between the US and China. How have people and even certain animals traded products and services for millennia, but a trade war? This is a relatively recent development. Thus, if a commercial disagreement turns into a military battle, such as the opium wars of the mid-1800s, you have a trade war. Fortunately, what has been happening between the United States and China is not that, which is not to say that the consequences have not been deep. Yet when two global superpowers clash, it's never just about them. We want to understand the conflict in a larger sense and figure out who is gaining if both China and the US are losing. What does all of this mean for the future of global trade in a post-pandemic world? On July 6, 2018, the United States announced a 25% tax on $34 billion in Chinese goods. China retaliated and was kind, on the same day that similar tit-for-tat occurred again the next month. But by September, China had fallen behind. For the next year, the US would hike tariffs while China would not respond. And then, in September 2019, a de-escalation would begin. The world's two most powerful countries are at odds. Throughout the last 16 months, the United States and China have traded blows in the form of tariffs on imports. The influence is being felt in sectors all across the world. So what is the truth behind the trade conflict between the United States and China? So, what have you been looking at in terms of the trade war? The United States is concerned that China is rapidly rising and, by some measurements, is on track to replace the United States as the world's largest economy. Essentially, China and the US are locked in a tariff race in which the US imposes a high charge on particular exports and China retaliates. It spans various sectors and markets, and it is massive. And now would be an excellent moment to consider what has occurred and how it may affect the globe in the future. How did this trade war get started? How did this trade war begin? For a long time, previous American governments have been frustrated with the Chinese. China's economic development has been spectacular. China's GDP at market prices was only 6% of America's in 1978. It had risen to 66% the previous year. When it comes to local spending power, China has already surpassed America. President Deng Xiaoping initiated this extraordinary expansion. He began opening up China's economy to the rest of the world in 1978, and the country swiftly became known as the world's factory. Over the next decade, exports as a percentage of GDP tripled, and by 1988, America accounted for 50% of China's exports. In 2001, China was admitted to the World Trade Organization, and it was America who brought it about. China became an economic giant after entering the WTO. Nonetheless, they anticipated the country to grow more similar to a Western capitalist economy. It did not occur. The US now says that China grew by not playing by the rules. Are those claims true? The US-China trade war began in 2018 when President Trump slapped tariffs on Chinese goods in a bid to lower the US trade imbalance. In response, China struck with taxes on American imports of its own. As the trade war heated up, the two countries levied increasingly hefty taxes on each other's commodities. To push the Chinese to modify their practices, the Trump administration has imposed tariffs or levies on imported goods. In July 2018, the United States announced 25% tariffs on $34 billion in Chinese goods. The average tariff rate on Chinese imports doubled, rising from 3.8% to 6.7%. The tax must be paid by U.S. businesses. But every rise from America was met with an increase from China. Since the start of the trade war, China's average tariff rate has more than doubled. America has tripled in size. Because China's tariffs are affecting President Trump's voter base, the conflict has turned brazenly political. Several of the countries where Trump won in 2016 were in the Great Plains, and these are the areas most hit by China's tariffs. As things currently stand, a trade war ceasefire might be on the horizon. The two leaders want to reach an agreement on a Phase 1 accord shortly, which may result in certain tariffs being eliminated. The Trump administration wants China to buy more American goods and to tighten intellectual property regulations. Would the signing of the Phase 1 agreement mark the beginning of the end of the trade war? Even if a Phase 1 agreement is reached, many concerns will remain unresolved. Yet the trade battle is about more than simply tariffs. America has also put limitations on some Chinese enterprises, particularly those in the technology sector. The trade war had a particularly negative impact on the logistics industry. Businesses had to figure out how to handle tariffs, alter supply networks, and prevent costly interruptions. As the trade war raged on, doing business between the two nations grew increasingly complicated and costly. China, on the other hand, had a hidden weapon in its armory. For the last decade, the Chinese government has invested extensively in its logistical infrastructure, and it is now enjoying the results. China has created an excellent network of ports, highways, trains, and airports that allow corporations to transfer goods to and from the nation rapidly and effectively. This gave Chinese companies a major advantage in the trade war. They were able to quickly and cheaply move goods to and from the country, while U.S. companies struggled to adjust their supply chains. This allowed Chinese companies to undercut their U.S. competitors on price, making them the preferred supplier for many goods. According to the Office of the United States Trade Representative, China is the United States' top trading partner, with a total of around $737 billion in goods and services transferred in 2018. It sounds fantastic, doesn't it? That works if you are China and exported about $558 billion, but not so much if you are the United States and only exported $179 billion. As can be seen, there is a significant trade imbalance here, with the United States importing far more than China than it exports to China. While this topic has been argued in the past, it is currently gaining increased attention, with the United States seeking to eliminate the imbalance through tariffs and other trade obstacles. Might the United States just win by imposing trade obstacles until the imbalance is corrected? In principle, winning a trade war is simple if the opposing side does not respond. But such eventualities are unlikely in reality. Strategic dominance in crucial industries such as rare earths is critical to all aspects of the U.S. economy, including defense. Needless to say, the issue is significantly more complicated than it appears, and the ideal case would undoubtedly include carefully negotiating a way out of this mess. China and the United States are at odds over trade. In 2018, U.S. President Donald Trump slapped a 25% global tax on steel, which has harmed the U.S. car sector, including giants such as Ford and General Motors, as well as SMEs such as Action Craft Boats. It's also possible that 400,000 American jobs may be destroyed. The harm done is irrevocable. President Trump has also on Twitter called on Apple to manufacture iPhones in America at zero tax. But Yukon Huang, former World Bank director for China, and Lawrence Lau of the Chinese University of Hong Kong explained why the U.S. would not gain much, and how Samsung could end up being the true winner, not U.S. consumers, if a tariff on imported iPhones is imposed. The world's two major economies, the United States and China, have been integrated, but the Trump administration is now trying to change that, and the trade conflict will affect more than just U.S. businesses and consumers, but also business and consumers here in China. That's all. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel and ring the bell icon to get more videos.